Welcome to Money Tales, where money gets personal. I'm Cammie Doder.
And I'm Sandy Brager.
Margarita Camarena's relationship with money was shaped by two extremes. As a child, she fled Mexico City after the 1985 earthquake, lost her father that same year, and arrived in the U.S. with her family, starting from zero. Years later, after earning 2 degrees from UC Davis, a lifestyle pivot collided with the 2008 financial crisis and led her to bankruptcy. That decision forced her to face the shame and fear that can come from financial collapse, along with the freedom that can follow. With a mother who taught saving and structure and a father who believed life is meant to be enjoyed while you are healthy, Margarita's story is a powerful lesson in balance and in seeing money as an energy that needs to move.
Here are 3 key money topics you'll hear in this conversation. First, how community, mentors, and family played a decisive role in Margarita's financial turning points and long-term stability. Second, how inherited beliefs about money can create an invisible ceiling on what we permit ourselves to have. And third, what true financial balance looks like when you intentionally align giving, receiving, saving, and enjoying life. Now it's our pleasure to bring you Margarita Camarena's Money Tales. Welcome to the Money Tales podcast, Margarita Camarena. We're so glad that you're here with us.
Thank you. It's a privilege to be here with you and everybody hearing.
One of the things that's been on my mind lately has been longevity. And I'm particularly interested in chatting about this with Margarita because she, as we'll hear more about, is a spiritual guide and healer. And I think about that in the context of longevity. The reason why I've been thinking about longevity is because I've been reading a series of journal entries by the journalist Calvin Tompkins, who is a writer for the New Yorker magazine. And in 2025, it was the New Yorker magazine's 100th birthday, and Calvin Tompkins was also turning 100 that year. I'm behind on all my reading of the New Yorker, so I just recently discovered this article. And it's a series of journal entries that he wrote over the course of 2025 based on his experience as someone turning 100. And there are more and more people who are living to age 100 and beyond. But I don't know, I know one of them, and it's not someone who I converse with a lot. So I don't really know what the perspectives were and what was coming up for them. So it's interesting to get this firsthand knowledge. And as a financial advisor, helping our clients plan for their futures, one of the questions that always comes up is, well, how long is your life going to be? How long are we planning for? Because if you are someone who comes from a family where everyone kind of lives their life by the time they're 85 and dies, then chances are, historically speaking, maybe that's how long we should be planning for you. But if you're someone who has really great genes, has really great access to medical care, and is living a healthy lifestyle, maybe we should be planning much beyond that. Some of our clients will say, let's plan till 105. I think the longest I've seen is 110 years old. And certainly the longer the plan is, the more resources we need to plan for to help finance that life. But there's so many other decisions that come into longevity that I think are important, not only from a planning perspective, but also just as we think about our life today and the impact that the choices we're making today on food, health, stress, money play out over time.
My maternal grandmother lived to 105.
Ooh, things are looking good for you, Cammie.
Yeah. Yes, as long as she was healthy. So as long as you live long and you're healthy, it's great. And she actually drove till she was probably 103, which was incredible. Yes, I know, a little shocking and scary. But when you were talking about planning, you're so right. And she actually was, she's incredible. She was incredible. She's passed, but thinking about where she'd live and how she would live. And she actually did build a 2-story house when she was 90. So, but thinking about elevators and how do we take care of ourselves? It's so important, the planning, and you don't know what's coming. So having the plan, having some flexibility also.
Yes. And also recognizing that as you age, your lifestyle inherently will change.
Yeah.
So I always talk with clients about this when they're younger. And, sometimes they're hesitant to spend money because they're like, well, we need it later on in life. Yes, that may be true, but this is also the youngest and healthiest you'll ever be from this point forward, likely. It's important to balance, I think, the here and now with the later on, and realize that later in life, for those of us who do live to 100 and beyond, the body does experience a big slowdown. And so the lifestyle looks very different. And sometimes you need to think about who will be available to help care for you and what that care could look like. And that's a very individual situation based upon your own body and lifestyle and personal factors. But I think one that's really important to think about.
So important. Thank you, Sandy. Well, it's my pleasure to pivot our conversation to you, Margarita. To kick things off, tell us about yourself and share a couple pivotal moments that really influenced who you are.
My name is Margarita. I have two worlds, the world of art and the world of healing. And it's interesting that we talk about longevity and the way, we see money. I happen to be the daughter of a woman who used to be a financial consultant as well back in Mexico City, and also my father who was an artist. And I have these two interesting, let's just say the very bohemian way of like working with money, and the other side which is like, let's plan, let's have a budget. And it was beautiful to like live in those two moments. A couple of pivotal moments in my life was, well, one, moving as a child to the US after a big earthquake in Mexico City in 1985.
How old were you, Margarita?
10 years old. And we came with zero. We lost our home. We were supposed to be here for 3 months with my uncle. And after going back and realizing that whatever we had left was completely gone, we decided to come back and start a new life in the U.S. So that meant arriving with the unification of our family and really working together. And that meant I was working, doing things for people in their homes, and my brothers too. I have two older brothers. One was working at Burger King, and the other one was working delivering newspapers. And my mom at that time was helping in a farm where they grew tomatoes. So all the family eventually we started picking tomatoes. So it's interesting. That's a pivotal moment in time where you start to grow humility, but also within that there's strength and the value of money, which is you don't value money until you don't have it. I have to also say that the same year of the earthquake, my dad passed away. So my mom made the decision to come to her brother's house because she was alone. She was handicapped. She was more capable than a lot of women I know who are not handicapped. So that is one pivotal point. And then it was in 2008. I was working at UC Davis. I'm a graduate of UC Davis. That's important to say. I graduated with 2 degrees. I'm a Bachelor's of Arts in Art Studio and a Bachelor's of Science in Environmental Design. I follow my dad's path into art and design. I worked for UC Davis for 11 years. And after a while, I wanted to make a change, to go into private sector, move to the city, to come back to more of a Mexico City life. And well, 2008 came, a crash of the economy. And the second pivotal point comes in where I have to declare bankruptcy because I couldn't make it on my own. There was actually nobody to help me financially because we were helping my mom and to make things through because of her handicap, not being able to work. This bankruptcy gave me a whole different notion of money. Again, coming back to when I was 10 years old and we had to move. How do I see this as an older woman now? And first, a bankruptcy can come with shame, and it can come with a lot of emotions. And it took me many years before coming to that conclusion that in order to feel free and move forward, the only option is to declare bankruptcy. I can almost equate it to when we're talking about health and longevity, is that when somebody is sick and you go to the doctor and immediately they're like surgery. For us in the wellness, we always say, yes, let's see if we can do surgery like as your last option. So bankruptcy is like your last option.
For sure. Yeah.
My brother was actually a financial consultant also. And he's the one who said, we need to be free. You need to, if you want to grow, you need to be okay with filing bankruptcy now that you're young. So I decided to do that.
Wow.
And I'm glad I did, actually.
Margarita, there's so much to talk about there. And you learned, it sounds like, really some incredible foundational guidance from your parents, being at opposite end of the spectrum. Your mom, this financial consultant, your dad, an artist. So when you were growing up before the earthquake, can you remember a time when money had meaning, and how did you connect money to your values when you were younger?
Well, coming back to longevity, the values that my mom put was you always have to save for your old age. And my dad was the opposite. He's like, you can enjoy it now while we are healthy. There's a lot of beauty in the world. Let's do half and half. I feel that they were able to match both of their goals really healthy. My dad would find like inexpensive ways of having fun. Like we would do road trips and my mom would like pack a nice little lunch for all of us. And she had a budget. My dad would kind of push a little bit to like, okay, can we add a little bit more fun? And in the summer, let's go have, a summer trip at the beach, which, requires a little bit more money. And so to see the free-spirited essence of my dad, the artist part of him, and enjoying the moment was beautiful. And seeing how my mom kind of put a nice scaffolding to like keep the boundaries of like, don't overspend. And if you don't need it, don't get it. So the question became, do you get what you need or what you want? While my mom stayed in the need, my dad also stayed in the want. Because what you want is what makes you happy and keeps you healthy. And what you need is more of a survival, according to my dad. And so it's interesting to like listen to those conversations among them.
Yeah, there's a lot of balance at play there. And I'm wondering, Margarita, with that grounding of two different perspectives that seem to be nicely balanced together while you were living in Mexico, when you came to the US as a fatherless family and the rest of you are working in the fields picking tomatoes, what was that like for you? What were you thinking about money then? You mentioned already that you got a perspective of what it feels like to live without money. Go a little deeper on that for us.
Yeah, well, arriving was really embracing what mom was teaching, which is you're gonna have what you need to have what you need. So it's like, I'm gonna be honest, it was survival, right? So to be humble in receiving the hand-me-downs of other people's clothes and going to the food banks to get food, and to really find this balance of how do you maintain health when you don't really have a choice of what you're eating and what you're wearing. So it was a little destructive at the beginning because there was a physical imbalance, an emotional imbalance, a mental imbalance, and of course trauma associated with that because he was dealing with the death of my dad, an earthquake, the death of a grandfather, and then moving to a country where you don't speak the language and don't understand the culture. And so it was like grabbing onto what felt safe at the moment. And then little by little, it's almost like learning to walk and speak all at the same time. So little by little, as we noticed the importance of staying together as a family, it was really lovely to to know that every penny counted, literally.
And so much change at one time, it can be really overwhelming. And I'm curious, how did you talked about chipping away at these changes? Describe what that's like, because it's really an important concept. I think life is about change and it can be really hard. You went through change all in 1 year, which is incredible. Tell us a little bit more about dealing with that, Margarita, and maybe what it taught you.
That there's always something bigger than ourselves. This is where spirit comes through. I mean, I always was kind of like the weird child who felt and saw things, you know? And this was the moment where the core values really stand strong. And this core values is really about staying strong in what you feel, what you believe. And in that moment, at least personally for me, it was, if the universe gave me life, is also there's purpose for me to be in this planet. And even though if things fall apart, I know I'm gonna be taken care of. In those moments, it was when I could really just feel, literally, it came down to feeling the earth under my feet, feeling the wind brushing my hair, feeling the oxygen coming into my lungs, and really just practicing just for right now. I am alive and I have everything I need. And I'm really counting the blessings of I have 2 feet, 2 hands, and the willingness to connect with people. So connecting with people was what really became pivotal, and not shying away, which at the beginning when you have so much trauma, there was no moment to lose, to make connections and really and create community.
I listened to you describe this. It sounds like there was an attunement happening within you as you were transitioning through all of this trauma in a new socioeconomic situation. And I think it's incredible that you grew out of that situation into a college student at UC Davis. And I'm wondering, when you got to school, what was going on financially for you? Because that's a huge accomplishment.
Yeah. Well, interesting you say that. We were low income, obviously. It was my high school teacher who became like a father to me. He was my art teacher. He's passed since then. But I wasn't even thinking about college because I was not financially able to. But, I had excellent grades. I was taking college prep classes. I was taking French because I already knew Spanish. I felt like it was cheating to take, Spanish classes in high school. So I had everything that I needed and the grades to go to college. And my art teacher said, "You're going to sit down and you're going to fill out these college applications." And I'm like, "Yeah, but I don't have money." I didn't say that whether you had money. I didn't ask that. "You're going to sit down and you're going to fill out these college applications." And I just had a beautiful, team at my high school, and they helped me apply for scholarships. I got accepted to the 3 colleges that I applied to, and I got 5 scholarships that got me to UC Davis. And it was an interesting moment of a lot of fear because I was still learning the language. Again, I was thinking of my dad and my mom. I'm gonna be the first person to go into a UC system directly from high school. I can do this. And that was like the driving force of it is possible.
I also appreciate you talking about the team that you allowed to guide you and help you. I'm emphasizing allow because sometimes we feel we have to do certain things alone. I don't want to either take, maybe there's a feeling of taking advantage or that I'm old enough, mature enough, whatever. And that's one of my things in life, Margarita. The older I get, the more I realize how important that team is. And I'm curious if you've continued that approach as you graduated college and, even going through a bankruptcy. Did you pull in the team to help you through, life's challenges?
Absolutely. And I think that is also part of the Mexican culture. We consider ourselves, our families are pretty close together. And when coming into my middle-aged hood, we call it community, but eventually it becomes family. During that bankruptcy, it was my brother who suggested this. The doctor who I used to work with, Dr. Eric, I also talked to him. He is one of my greatest mentors, and I talked to several people to get advice about it. And some people advised me for my soul. Other people advised me to have a cold brain to make decisions. Another person, helped me with the other personal, how do all these pieces come together to really land and then start to plan for the future and not feel like, I'm broken or jaded or unworthy or all those things that people feel during, making that decision of bankruptcy.
So, Margarita, you mentioned earlier in the conversation how when a person goes through bankruptcy, there's a lot of emotion. Shame could be part of the feeling. And you've also mentioned the importance of community. And so I'm wondering, with the combination of those two things, when you went to your brother and to these other people to get advice and guidance, what was it like for you? Was it a easy money conversation to open up, or was it more challenging than that?
Well, it became very challenging. But then after looking at money differently, and this is important because part of the shift in consciousness is that money for some people equals power. And I learned that the shift is seeing money as energy. When I had that shift in consciousness, I realized that my energy was stuck. If I allowed myself to let go of how things should be and allow the universe really to let go and trust the same universe that helped me when I was 10 years old to allow me as an older woman that things would happen for me, not to me. And so in that shift and that teamwork, it was more about what happened within than without. That became another personality shift, if I can call it that way, in that I started to see my life as a gift in itself, and how the shift in consciousness of looking at money as energy and how I'm moving and allowing that energy to move shifts things. So, for example, when we work a lot with the healing practice, some people cannot pay because they're either going through a difficult situation. There's always an energy exchange that has to happen. So we can either call it money or we can call it energy exchange. And I'm gonna shift a little bit because I think this is a good place to put it in, which for the Mayan community is important to have that energy exchange after healing, because the person has the ability to own that healing because they gave something in return. And of course, back in the communities when midwives were the doctors of the town or the medicine men, medicine women, people didn't have coins or bills, money per se. They had cacao, they had feathers, they had gems, they had chickens, they had eggs, they had tortillas, they had different things that they would bring to the healer to keep the healer well. Whether the healer needed to have a fence fixed or their house cleaned, there was an exchange, not always money. And so obviously in America and the US, in modernity, we don't have that system. But when we look at the density and the multidimensionality of money, this is where this shift of consciousness is important, because what is it that we take with us when we die, right? This is what I learned with my mom's passing and the people that I see in their coffins. It's like, we don't take the house, we don't take the car, we don't take the money, we don't take the bank account. And so this is where my dad's, love of the moment is important. And so I think it's important to have that money as energy exchange really intact.
I like how you put that together. And I'm wondering how you would describe your relationship with money today, now understanding that energy shift.
Well, one of the things that I always say, the more that I have, the more I can give. And there are people who sometimes are not able to do many things, and I show up. The relationship with money is kind of like what I have been learning both from my mom's side and my dad's side, of really having the four directions, like when we do ceremony, we look to the north, to the south, to the east, and to the west. And so when I look at this money as these directions, is to our right side is how much are we giving, how much are we receiving, and how much am I looking to the future, which is our north, and how much am I dragging from the past. To create this four directional use of money, am I like holding too much that I'm becoming kind of stingy, or am I over giving that I am not taking care of myself? Am I like thinking so much about the future that I'm not living my present? Or am I still holding on to the shame and the anger of my past mistakes or situations? And so there's this essence of the Toltecayot that I'm learning to live, not just with money, but with everything, of like really living in the art of living in balance. My relationship to money is to really find this balance of like giving and receiving, and also saving for the future, but also really taking a moment and scheduling in, my calendar, trips to like have with my niece and my nephews, and having, a little bit of fun to like really feed back the soul, and to really enjoy everything that I have this far, even if it's not a lot, but that this whole biography of my life has brought me to be here today.
Margarita, what I hear is balance. You're all about balance because you said, you can't overgive, you can't overtake. There's just this balance. And, I think about how important that is in life, and that things can get a little skewed, but you always have to be present. How do you recommend people, your clients, get in touch with where they are and whether they need to kind of recalibrate for their balance?
I think it all comes down with fear.
Ah,
What is our greatest fear? Is our fears creating a block of how we move forward? And sometimes fear can be not just the strongest antidote for, illness, but is also making us not move or have that flow with money. If there is an imbalance in how the relationship with money, it's like I would go back to my own biography and look at those points in my life where I have been, not make it about myself, of course, but to notice if there is a part of their physical essence that might have a block. This is something that I noticed too when we don't get body work or a healing of any type. We're also not allowing havingness to come into our life. What is our relationship to havingness? Because that's an energy in itself too. And I noticed this in Mexico a lot, that there are certain people who feel like they can only arrive to this much when they're capable of, coming this high. And so what is it? What is it? What is the block? What is the obstruction? What is the mental programming that is not allowing that person's physiology or psychology or spirituality to not surpass that, right? And I'm gonna talk from my upbringing, which was Catholic. I say that I'm a recovered Catholic now because I have the white road and the red road, but there is this notion that money is evil, and that for you to be a good human being, you have to be like St. Francis of Assisi, which was being a beggar. We have to be very careful when it comes to that programming because, and I'm saying again, from my own personal upbringing and what I've seen in Mexico, which is like, yeah, money is evil and you're a good person if you remain poor and humble. But again, if you remain little and humble, then you are limited to how much you can give, to how much you can expand, to how much you can live. So the quality of your life is equal to how much happiness you can allow yourself to have.
Oh, Margarita, beautifully said. I appreciate these insights. Tell us, what's your next money conversation going to be and who's it going to be with?
Well, I'm going to say that it's going to be to the little ones, to the young ones. And it's really going to be about how to create a good relationship with how they love themselves and how loving themselves and carrying the dynasty, if you want to call it that way, and the connection to their ancestors, how they're going to grow up to be the ancestors of the future generations, and the importance of creating a healthy relationship with themselves and that balance that we talked about.
Margarita, thank you for reminding us that we will be the ancestors one day too. What an incredible way of thinking about your legacy and how you give back. It's been such a treat to talk with you on Money Tales, hearing your story and inspiring us through that and the wisdom. I'm taking away ideas around fear and really understanding fears and what it's telling me. And I thought that was really interesting. And then our legacy and inspiring others through that.
Thank you. It's really a treat.
Thanks for listening to the Money Tales podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, share it with someone you think would benefit from listening. And leave us a review on your favorite podcasting platform. Your ratings and reviews help more people find our podcast. If you're inspired to gain clarity and peace of mind about financial matters, don't hesitate to reach out to our team at Aspirient. Go to aspirient.com/start a dialogue. Or you can email Sandy and me at podcasts@aspirient.com. See you next time.